digitalization has been dominating conversations in almost all walks of life. COVID-19 has accelerated its pace and eventually every industry, including the automotive, which has been largely a brick and mortar industry, adopted to that. Not only the OEMs, but the dealers and customers also have been equally disrupted by this wave of the new normal. In the upcoming panel discussion, our panel of experts will share their knowledge on changing paradigms of the pre-owned vehicle industry. I would like to invite Mr. Sumantra Bibhuti Barooah, Consulting Editor, ETAuto, to moderate the discussion. Over to you, Sumantra.
Thank you very much, Aini. And once again, very warm welcome to this special session at the end of the Automotive ETAuto Retail Forum 2022. And as Aini mentioned, this session will focus on the growing pre-owned vehicle industry. Throughout the course of the day, we saw some very engaging, insightful, informative, interesting panel discussions, ranging from digitalization to new age dealerships, the perspective of EVs, the EV electrification megatrend on the retail business, new ways of doing business in the retail industry, primarily in the new vehicles business. But there is one very key component of the overall Indian automotive market, which is the pre-owned vehicles. Just to give you an idea, currently the size of the pre-owned vehicle is about 1.75, one new to used ratio in terms of sales is one is to about 1.75 or 1.8 thereabouts. In terms of absolute numbers, the new car industry sales stood at about, say, let's say 3 million, and the used car is at about 5 million or so. And in terms of absolute numbers in the used car space, the number was around 3.8 million in 2021, the financial year, and expected to reach about 7 million by 2025-26, according to a study. So, as mentioned earlier, the theme of this session is changing paradigms of the pre-owned vehicle industry. And it's my privilege and honor to introduce the panelists of this session, starting with John Paul Curran from Popular Vehicles. He's the managing director of Popular Vehicles, which is driving towards its 40th year of operations in about a couple of years from now, exactly a couple of years, I guess. And we have Mohan Mariwala, another veteran in the auto retail business, whose entity who's from Auto Hangar, India, just recently celebrated its 25th year of founding. And we have a veteran, he doesn't look like, but he is a veteran in the pre-owned vehicle industry, Vinay Sanghi, the founder and chairman of CarTrade Tech. So Vinay, John, and Mohan, hearty welcome on behalf of ETAuto.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And Vinay, let me start off with you. I was just recalling the earlier days of the pre-owned vehicle market, highly unorganized. There are barely maybe one or two entities who would qualify or who were making efforts to organize the market. One of them was Automart India. And for those who may not be aware, Vinay was a partner there. And Vinay, from there till now, how would you kind of define the journey of the pre-owned vehicle industry?
Hi, Sumantra. Hi, John. Hi, Mohan. Bhai. First of all, thank you for having me here on the panel. Yeah, this journey of the whole used car industry in India is, you know, or when it became of size about 25 years old. I remember 1990s or the late 1990s starting to work on the used car industry. And, you know, at that time, the complexities were different. I think there was a VAT or a sales tax on used cars. So if you bought and sold a used car, you'd pay full tax. And I remember FADA and multiple other organizations endlessly working to, you know, get that corrected state by state. So we started really way back with all these regulatory issues. Of course, the industry at that point was of very small size, and I think one of the reasons the industry was very small was because when people bought a car, they held on to the car for 8 to 10 years. And I think what changed maybe in the late 90s and early 2000s, with the number of new model makes, variants of new cars being launched every year, the used car industry started to grow, because the more new cars being sold, people were, or the more models being launched, people were incentivized to change their car faster. So the biggest driver at that point was the fact that people, rather than holding onto the car for 10 years or 15 years, like the good old Maruti, I would say Maruti, but the good old Ambassador in the Fiat days, people started to change their car every 3-4 years, and that led to volumes in the used car market. The used car market is fueled by secondary volumes which come from people changing their cars, and that's being incentivized by new make model variants. It's being enabled by financing, because more financing availability, the more people had the money or the capability to change their car. And also being enabled by growth of just income levels, right? So you have a person who earlier bought a two-wheeler, now is going to upgrade to a car. So number of factors, and we've seen a strong growth pattern all the way from early 2000, to today in the used car industry. Now, as you said, it's about a 5 million car industry, and I still believe will grow at 10 to 12% a year, hopefully for the next 5 years. So that's the way it is, but it's getting more and more organized, and organized means, the retailers getting more organized, or the dealers are getting more organized in the way they buy cars, stock cars, refurbish cars, display cars, sell cars. I think it's getting organized also that this use of technology started to take place. Consumers are coming online to look for cars and buy cars. It's getting organized by way of organized finance. So every element of the trade is getting organized.
Right. Good to see that it's getting increasingly organized, and that also is all reflected by this growing the trend of startups purely focused on the pre-owned vehicle business. They don't have a new car business. They're focusing only on pre-owned vehicles. John, popular vehicles, for the benefit of everyone, I would like to share is one of the first dealers appointed by Maruti Suzuki, then Maruti Udyog in India. In fact, in Kerala, popular vehicle was the first one to be appointed, and will celebrate its 40th year in 2024, if I'm not wrong. So, John, from the used car vehicle business of a dealership, from being just an inventory of cars that were traded in exchange of new cars, to now, how has been the change in the business dynamics? Let's say if I take popular vehicles as an example.
So I'll just start with the history, in the sense Maruti was the first manufacturer who actually started the organized sector in the true used car business, and they branded it as True Value. That was the beginning, and that happened around 92, I would say, the organized level. Before that, there was a little here and there. It was not, they had not really branded it. And later on, they branded it to True Value. So from there on, the used car business had started to get organized. However, I would say it's in the last few years, say 5-6 years, when like Vinay, a lot of portals started coming in. And in the last few years, especially in the last 2 years, because of the pandemic, people have started getting on and actually looking for used cars. Otherwise, there would be people looking for new cars, but even that was very low. In the last 2 years, that has gone up to a large extent. Okay, and in that way, it has helped. Okay, the difference between most portals and the organized, I wouldn't say organized, but the dealership used car businesses is that most of the dealerships buy and sell the car. I'm talking about the used car. So, and that is a very large percentage of it is because of exchange. But that has maintained, this exchange has actually maintained the used car values. Okay, because otherwise there's no gauge. So when a dealer starts buying in an exchange, when they start buying a used car, they give it a certain value, and knowing very well that they have to resell it. So that standardizes the value or the price of a used car that is run a certain amount of kilometers or certain number of years. Okay, that is how the organized sector, the manufacturers and the dealers have set the trade lines. Okay. Now, I think we have come a long way. The popular vehicles has, we do more than about 1,500 vehicles every month, between 1,000 and 1,500, so most dealers or the larger dealers should be doing these volumes. And all the smaller dealers, they do a proportional thing because it's about, say, 40%, between 30 and 40% exchange. But in the recent years, many dealers have started buying. I'm not talking only Maruti dealers, but I'm saying even other dealers, the organized sector in that way, with the brick and mortar type, not the total level thing. They've started buying and selling the vehicle. And even the park and sale has started going up. And of course, on portals, you can see vehicles which probably are not bought, but are willing to sell to the portals or already sold to the portals. So this way, now it's become very, very organized. But in spite of that, 50% or more still are traded between customers or in the unorganized sector. That hasn't changed, which I would say depends a lot on the taxation of used cars, which if there's a change in that, I have a feeling that will become much larger. The same volume will start shifting towards organized sector. So I think it's very good, and such webinars or panel discussions will help the shift from the unorganized sector to the organized sector.
Mohan, first of all, congratulations on Auto Hangar India turning 25. But you have been in the business for longer, right, with another brand. So tell us, when it comes to the dynamics of the pre-owned vehicle business in markets like Mumbai, where you are based, how has it changed? And you have a separate entity also, which is focused purely on pre-owned. So what are the key trends that you're noticing, observing, and especially any particular trend triggered during by the pandemic?
Yeah, so I think Vinay also quite correctly summarized it. One of the trends that we are continuously seeing even before the pandemic and right through the pandemic is especially on the premium and the luxury pre-owned car segments, the gamut or the profile of the customer has been changing over a period of time. And traditionally, while affordability would have been the driver of somebody deciding to go in for a pre-owned car, I think multiple reasons are now driving the decision to invest in a pre-owned car. Fundamentally, a lot of it being it's a depreciating asset like any other car. Pre-owned cars do, and luxury cars do depreciate a lot more heavier within the first year of ownership. People are confident, and the level of trust and organized industry backing it with products such as warranty, etc., have opened up people who are aspirationally looking at getting into a luxury car. And it finally segments the entire automotive industry between new car offerings by offering used cars across various segments and across various price points. So we are increasingly seeing people who are adding one more car, preferring to do that through a luxury car, luxury pre-owned car. People who are aspirationally looking at maybe buying a new premium size C plus segment car, looking at options of pre-owned luxury cars. The advent and also the increase in penetration and willingness of bankers to fund retail loans on pre-owned cars is also something which has fueled this largely. Once again, native to luxury segments, most luxury segment car growth was led by captive financiers. Captive financiers were also able to fund pre-owned car retail loans at a far more aggressive rate than conventional bankers, which has also led to acceptance of pre-owned cars to be a lot more wider. But Sumantra, if I were to summarize it, I think the shift of the business into the organized segment, which is delivering far better on the promise of trouble-free maintenance, allowing people ownership choices such as extended warranties, maintenance contracts on pre-owned cars is giving people the comfort of that investment.
I see. And Mohan, you touched upon finance. That's one. But let me get John in here to get the perspective from the volume segment of the pre-owned car vehicle business. John, uh, uh, as I observe, there is a significant difference still in terms of the rates that are there for new car buyers and for pre-owned car buyers. As the market is getting, it has become significantly much more organized than even what it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. However, that kind of a positive trend is not reflected on the finance side. Why do you think so? And is there something that maybe the finance companies are missing to spot, or are there some really genuine challenges for which, or rather risks?
Okay, Sumantra, I think one of the major aspects of finance, big finance not coming into the used car business as yet, is because they find it difficult to value the used car. But however, with what is happening now in the last few years, if you take a particular vehicle, the variation of that vehicle in the market is not very high. It is stabilized because almost all dealers dealing in the used car will buy that vehicle within a few thousands of the other. Okay, that's the way the business is established, or it is settling down in that way. So then it becomes easier for the financer to settle the value of a particular car. In a new car, they know the price because the manufacturer decides the price and the market selling. Even in spite of all the discounts, they know what a market price for a new car is. So when they finance a new car, it's easier for them to assess the value. That is what was stopping them. But I don't think that should stop them anymore. I still feel the major finance people have still not studied the market, though we, in the last so many years, we've been talking to many of them and telling them that now there's more of an established value for each model and with the kilometers run and all that. So I think slowly, since the volumes have started suddenly going up, thanks to the pandemic, the used car business has grown a lot. And for the next 15 years, I feel, or at least next 10 years, I think there would be a CAGR of almost 15 to 20% in the used car.
So that's a significant growth projection.
If they do not come in at this time, those who come in are going to have the worms.
Yeah, you mean the financiers. There's a good opportunity for financiers to tap. Yeah? Okay, that's good to know. And here I would also bring in Vinay. Two of your entities, brands rather, Carwale and Bikewale, are perhaps more popular than CarTrade Tech, and from the consumer perspective. Just can you share the two-wheeler, pre-owned two-wheeler business perspective also? Because as much as we see, we discuss about pre-owned vehicles, usually we talk about four-wheelers, the cars. The pre-owned two-wheelers, yes, one may say that it's more of a semi-urban stroke rural business, but however, it's not perhaps it's not getting its due importance or focus. Is that so? Or if so, what are the reasons?
Sure. Yes, our brands which are known really are Carwale, where consumers come to buy new cars, used cars, and Bikewale is a two-wheeler brand. And we got almost 30 million customers a month on Carwale and Bikewale for new cars and used cars and new and used two-wheelers. What we are seeing across cars and bikes, one trend, and bikes is even more disorganized because, the ticket size is very low. I mean, when you look at an average ticket size of maybe 15,000 or 10 or 15,000 rupees for a used two-wheeler, there's a lot of C2C. I think John talked about C2C in the used car industry. C2C in the used bike industry is even more prevalent. Financing a used two-wheeler is even tougher because at that ticket size, at that margin, and that ability of that volume.
You have to invest the same amount of manpower or resources and money for a single sale, for example. Whereas the overall ticket size is a huge difference, right?
So the work done in buying a used two-wheeler and selling it, and the work done in buying a used car and selling it is the same. And at that ticket size, that margin is just not viable. So you find that dealers or organized dealers are reluctant to do it. It tends to be very, very fragmented. a lot of small two-wheeler workshops or service centers trade in vehicles, or you have C2C, as I said. Platforms like ours are heavily used for C2C. Consumers connect with each other. And I think that's where it's going. I feel that with these ticket sizes, you might have what we call in the car industry also, what we are working towards, even in the car industry, is a one-click purchase, right? Mm-hmm. Or a one-click sale, enabling people to do it almost all online with a very low ticket size on two-wheelers. That will get done where people might come online and sell it to each other and enable that entire transaction through e-commerce. And that's the way it might go. You might find that dealers reluctant or to get organized on the used two-wheeler side just because it's just very, very high volume, very, very fragmented, and very low ticket size, right? So you might find, in fact, that's probably an area where online may play a greater role in connecting customers and our buyers and sellers.
In fact, and as I understand, one of the key players in the key new players in the pre-owned car space had also dabbled with the pre-owned two-wheeler space, but couldn't sustain. Perhaps it's on the verge of closing that part of this business. I hear, and perhaps that I think online would be a kind of a solution to take care of the sales cost and the operational cost, the huge difference that's there. So another aspect of the new trend is electrification. Mohan, recently when you responded to ETAuto's questionnaire or the ETAuto top 100 power dealers list, one of the questions was whether you would be interested in taking up an EV dealership, to which you said yes. But on this side of the business, on the pre-owned side of the pre-owned vehicle business, what kind of influence or impact do you think this electrification, or rather the prospects of the EV trend would be?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Sumantra, and that is something that we've been trying to wrap our head around for quite a while. And we had the opportunity to talk to several valuation-based businesses, financiers of large auction houses and inventories of electric cars in Europe. Because I do believe that it's one of the most mature electric vehicle markets, and having gone through the first cycle of replacements. And it's interesting to see that right through the pandemic, which probably accelerated the trend, the residual values on electric vehicles were actually a lot lower than the residual values on internal combustion pre-owned cars. And fundamentally,
and why so?
Yes, and fundamentally, most of these do get driven. So there are electrification of vehicles through Europe has been driven by massive subsidies, extremely large subsidies by various governments. And I think that is what is keeping the residual values continuing to remain low. I think the markets will only mature once we reach a tipping point where new car vehicle sales of electric vehicles maybe reach 50% or more of total cars sold, by which time governments would start withdrawing subsidies and the true residual values would surface. But various aspects affected. For example, I think earlier in the day we had a session where people mentioned, an electric vehicle will have to stare at a battery replacement 7 to 8 years down the road in its ownership cycle, which could be almost 40% of its cost as of today. But it's a chicken or egg situation. So as volumes increase, I think the cost of batteries would come down. I would think for every percentage increase of global sales of electric vehicles, battery costs would come down, if I'm not mistaken, by roughly around 20%, which is huge. So moment we reach a tipping point, I think we will see a more sustainable residual value. But till then, electric vehicle residual values remain a black hole and remain to be seen. And I think even as dealerships, we'll have to be prepared to have the transition, because it's going to affect our traditional sources of revenue, which have been service parts, pre-owned cars, and by and large delivered through brick and mortar platforms. Right. So besides aggregators on service, besides aggregators on generating leads, you also got to be content with electrification naturally dropping traffic through workshops. So I think the transition for dealerships is going to be multifold over the next few years, is what I believe, including residual values on electric cars, which will remain to be discovered.
Right. John, have you done any kind of preliminary study on what the scenario could be? I know Maruti perhaps would be, would take a few more years before they enter the EV space, but you have other brands also in your portfolio. But generally, have you done any preliminary study about what the prospects could be for EVs in the pre-owned vehicle sector also?
So I think, Sumantra, it is too early for us to assess any EV business in India as yet. Okay, it's going to take time because of various factors. We all know there's hardly any manufacturer. There are very few EV manufacturers, and infrastructure is still far from what is required. So let's. I don't think we should be discussing that factor too much, but on the other hand, since you asked me, have you studied these things? We have been studying as Mohan mentioned earlier, more so the American and the Chinese market. I think the Chinese market is probably the oldest and the largest EV market also, not only in volumes, but also in percentages. Because the Chinese government, for a very large extent, was pushing the subsidies and pushing the manufacturers to make these cars. But you would have come across just a year back, when they stopped the subsidies, the percentage from 10% production fell to 4% or 3%. Okay, and it just kept going down. And then I think they reintroduced part of the subsidies to make it come back. So, in spite of being a market, and that was mainly in the two-wheeler market. When I say mainly in the two-wheeler market was the larger volume in China of the EVs. But even the passenger cars that had shifted or were shifting, still in spite of that 10 years of subsidies, it was only they had taken up the production only to about 10%, hardly 10%, 7-8%, and that came down to 2-3%. The demand came down to below 4%. So from that, and the US, in spite of doubling last year, for Tesla's production doubled last year, or I can say the EV market doubled last year, compared to just the year previous to it. And yet, in total production is still below 4%. So that shows what the market could be. And it's, though we all want, everybody's looking for an EV market, I think it's quite a few years away from what can happen. So let's wait. India, for example, does not have too much of subsidies as yet. It's the state governments which are giving something. So without that, there's not going to be much of a push into this market. So India will be much slower till some action of this sort happens. And that is why what Mohan said about, residual value of EVs are lower is fundamentally because of the subsidies.
If that is so, it's still evolving. If that is so in terms of the residual value, Vinay, do you think perhaps online entities perhaps will have a little bit of an advantage compared to physical businesses, for pre-owned EVs?
I think whether it's pre-owned or whether it's IC engines, digital is here, right, today. So I see a future where, of course, the fact that, whether it's an electric vehicle, I said again, an IC, I see a future where what we call is a one-click purchase of a used car. Now, whether you're a dealer selling your car, whether a platform like Carvale, which is us selling a used vehicle, I see a customer coming online, looking for his car, finding his car, booking the car, now it may be electric or EV, it really doesn't matter, wanting a loan on the vehicle. So someone like our platform connects you to 10 banks, getting approval instantly, getting a loan disbursed online. Today, loans don't get disbursed online. It is a whole offline process. But I see in the near future, the loan getting disbursed online. And I see the dealer or the person owning the vehicle delivering it to the customer's house. So, it's what we call, in a way, what Amazon does for mobile phones or books. We see that happening on used cars. And, someone may say I'm being being a little over-optimistic. But I am over-optimistic by nature anyways. But I see that happening. Whether it happens in 1 year or 3 years, I don't know. But it is happening, right? And I think the auto industry itself, or the used car industry, the changes we haven't seen in the industry for 50 years, we probably see, and most people on this panel would agree, to see in the next 5 to 8 years. Whether it's clean energy, whether it is digital, whether it is AI or all the other new trends disrupting our industry, but you'll see all these changes take place. I personally feel very optimistic about the used car industry or the used vehicle industry. Whether I agree with John. Whether it's EV or whether it's IC, it hardly matters. I just see optimism around, but it'll get more digital in its whole way of operating.
Talking about optimism, Vinay, I mean, since if I look at your journey, I think much of the optimism was well placed, and wasn't misplaced. And to the viewers, initially, when I introduced Vinay, I mentioned about his journey since the Automart India days. To those who may not be aware, Automart India is what is now Mahindra First Choice Wheels. So there is so Vinay's optimism was well placed in the pre-owned vehicle industry much before it became what it is today. But tell me, Vinay, we are also witnessing over the last couple of years many entities springing up in the pre-owned vehicle business. Some of them existing earlier, maybe getting themselves more organized, and some are fresh. They are startups, and many of them raising a whole lot of funds, which also reflects the kind of optimism on the prospects of the growth prospects of the pre-owned vehicle market. In such a scenario, how do you think now? What do you think would be the sustainability factor of these new entities, or do you think they will reshape the pre-owned vehicle market, or could there be some consolidation too, maybe?
The industry is 5 million cars. There have been many players in the industry. Carvale is a player, and there will be many others. Shriram Automata auction business exists where we auction 1 million vehicles. So there will be many players in this business, helping consumers sell vehicles, buy vehicles. They'll be on cars, commercial vehicles, two-wheelers, all of them. It's a massive opportunity in India. I still say it's at its early stages of evolution. It's not a mature industry. It'll take time. And you will have new entrants like all these platforms coming up on it. I think what's here to stay is the way consumers buy or sell vehicles. Now the question is, whether I am a dealer, whether I'm a platform, whether I am a manufacturer, everybody will have an opportunity. As I said, to me, the future is more digital, the customer being able to do something digitally. And also the future is about good quality and trust, right? Where if someone can buy a vehicle with a warranty, with a money back guarantee, or whatever it might have, after sales service, etc., etc. So digital plus trust is really the way of the future. People buying vehicles and selling vehicles. It does, and it's a big market. 5 million cars, then two-wheelers and commercial vehicles on top. I think commercial vehicles also estimate about 1.5 million commercial vehicles a year, right? So it's about 6.5, 7 million today. I believe going to maybe 10, 11 million over the next 4 to 5 years. Anybody who's willing to cater to the customer's need, which is to digital plus trust, I would say, will have a market or a share to play. Yes, money is available because India is going through this whole startup culture where capital is available for young digital.
There is no dearth of funds as long as there's a good idea.
Absolutely correct. I think, and that's the new India, which we're all proud to be part of, right? I think I heard the finance minister and the prime minister say that the next 8 to 10 years is going to be is going to be the new startup. There's going to be startup, drive or startups are going to lead the new India, right? And we're all proud to be part of that.
John, we are talking about these, the emergence of these new players who are, if I may call them, born pre-owned vehicle business. They are not, they do not have any other background in the retail business. So in this scenario, there is also a trend of well-established players. Many of them your peers of popular vehicles, in maybe under the Maruti brand or other brand, who have been in the business for long, but now are also setting up a separate parallel business, pre-owned vehicle business under new brand. That's another trend. So how do you see this shaping up? And what are the triggers of doing this? Or what are the benefits of doing this? And how do you see this a new trend shaping up?
Before I come to answer your question, I wanted to say a word about Vinay. Vinay is not only about his vision, he's a very tough nut. Okay. In the sense, he has followed through with his vision. That's where most of the new players may not do so. So everybody thinks of a different plan. If you look at Vinay's background, he came from a dealership business or family. Okay, then moved on to this. He created that sense of going away from dealerships, but yet doing the used car business. And then he grew it. He grew it into a platform. So there's a long history of how he understands the market and he's brought it. Okay. Now, when you ask about new platforms coming in, most of them are operating only on the tech sense. It's not about knowing the actual business, right? So when they come in, the failures in those businesses are bound to be much higher than from business like Vinay's. Knowing the whole industry, he's come in. He's establishing that from a very different perspective. He's just moving from the brick and mortar to the portal. That's what he has done. But the others are coming thinking that there is a big business in this and it's going to transform and, you can disrupt the automobile industry. So both these players, what I'm saying is brick and mortar and the portal players are going to be there for some time together. Okay. And it has to happen. Now, the question that you asked me is about many organized sector players are coming
legacy in. Legacy players setting up a new brand under that brand. It's pre-owned only.
So many of the dealerships, they operate most of their used car businesses are for exchange. Okay, it's a way of getting new car sales at the same time making some money in the used car business. So if you look at the new car business and the used car business, every new car sold by any dealer of the same manufacturer is the same. Okay, when a customer wants it, it's the same price, it's the same car. But in a used car business, every car, whether it was sold in the same year, is a different product. Okay, it depends on how much it is run, how old it is. It also depends on who's dealing with it. If a particular dealer who has a reputation is dealing with that car will get a better value, or the customer is willing to give a better value. So these things may not reflect on a portal. Okay, so now many of the organized sector or the dealerships are now starting their own used car businesses. It is fundamentally because of this. That is, there are many cars that are coming in where you may not be able to sell through exchange because he wants a totally different car. And so he just wants to sell his car and move on. Right? So and the dealer actually sees this business much more because he's trying to trade in or put in another car. So that is where they feel there's this opportunity. And they know the business and they know that more than park and sale, if you can actually refurbish a vehicle and sell it, there are bigger margins in it. Okay. Which is generally more than your new car sale margins. Okay. So that is probably the reason that there are dealers who are starting their own outlets in this form. That's what that is the reason. And I think there is scope in that. There is scope in that because no dealer would do it if he did not see the scope in it.
Right. So indeed. And
go on.
Yeah. And your industry colleague and co-panelist Mohan is very soon. I think he's going to open a new pre-owned vehicle showroom in Pune. So Mohan, are those the kind of triggers, drivers, better margins, and also increasing a number of people who want to kind of just sell off the car, may or may not exchange it for let's say a Mercedes-Benz from Auto Hangar?
No, absolutely right. And I think between what Vinay summed up and what John summed up, I think they've captured the gist of the entire transition very, very well. There is, of course, the element of being digitally present and the element of trust. I think these two are very, very significant in the entire pre-owned car business. Trust is one of over a period of years, we realized is one of the most significant elements, especially when it comes to premium and luxury cars, where your ticket size is almost 10 times the mass market size on pre-owned cars. Coupled with that, I also have a slightly different viewpoint. As John rightly said, every car is different. Remember that. And we finally segment the entire new car segment through placements of certified guaranteed used cars. And in that, the touch and feel and brick and mortar is as vital. So I do feel that the trend ahead, at least in the immediate future, would be digital. Brick and mortar will have a significant play, and inventory-led businesses will have an edge. But that cannot happen without technology. And technology will have to come in various ways, not only in reaching out to the customer and getting information, but technology in how well you can evaluate cars. I think that is going to be fundamentally a game changer, because you cannot do it traditionally. You will not scale up, you will not grow. So that is also one of the areas that we would be working on as we come into our own branded used car business.
You touched upon trust. There is also another factor of image associated with pre-owned cars in many markets. Till recently, I mean, even now, the term is second-hand car. Usually people till recently, especially in tier 2, tier 3 cities, do not want to be seen driving a second-hand car. Is that changing in India now? Do you witness that?
Most certainly it is. Most certainly it is. And in fact, we've seen that while we were present in tier 2 markets 10 years ago. It would have been impossible for us to trade in a car and sell it within that same market. We would have had to move it to Mumbai or wherever to sell it, but not any longer. So as I said, this is happening because the gamut of the consumer is changing. And I think what can really make a difference is one thing which I continue to keep saying is ability for the government to support this by moving to one country, one road tax. I think that can completely open up the entire gamut of used car business, ability of auction houses to scale up, ability of people to trade cars across borders. I mean, you can start with simpler things like whether while you transition from one country, one road tax, it could start with a 3-year road tax regime where you pay 3-year road tax and decide, because life cycles of cars are getting shorter.
Indeed. And one country, one tax is a very good suggestion. On that note, gentlemen, Vinay Sanghi, John Paul, Mohan, Mariwala, thank you very much for sparing your time. We have just run out of time in this very interesting and exciting and insightful discussion around pre-owned vehicle markets. Now it's time for me to say goodbye to everyone, and thanks once again for your participation.
Thanks a lot.
And
thanks to everybody.
It's back to you. Thank you very much. Thank you. And back to you, Aini.
Thank you everyone for sharing some valid points and insights. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to unveil the ETAuto Top 100 Power Dealers list. Stay tuned, everyone.